Hey, it's James from 4x4 Earth, and welcome to episode 22 of the 4x4 Earth podcast, four-wheel drive insurance and roadworthies with Kalen from Club 4x4.
Join James from 4x4earth.com as he learns all there is to know about four-wheel driving, camping, fishing, and getting out and exploring our great country on the 4x4 Earth podcast.
Hey everyone, really interesting topic to be talking about today. We've got Kalen from Club 4x4 Insurance in to talk about four-wheel drive insurance, obviously, but we're also going to be looking at the really interesting MA/MC vehicle rating issue. Now, this has been a huge topic on Facebook and on the forum with Ford Everest and Jeep with the Cherokee and Grand Cherokee, the 2016 models, rating them as road vehicles, not four-wheel drives. That's going to have quite a few implications for owners moving forward. So we're going to have a good chat. And Kalen's done a lot of research into this because obviously it has some fairly significant concerns or implications around insurance. So really interesting to delve into that topic. Before we get into that though, I just got back from the 9th Annual Victorian 4x4 Earth Gathering and got to say, had an awesome time. So tragically, I had to leave early because of some family commitments. So I was out there on Friday and Saturday. First time out the Sheepyard Flats. Beautiful place. It's got a lovely creek just running around the edge of it. Great to see so many people out there. Not sure what the final numbers would have been, 50 plus vehicles. It was a really good turnout considering that there was some fairly colourful weather situations going on there with lots of rain forecast for the Sunday, which is a bit disappointing. But the thing that I loved was just the number of families who were out there. A lot of them out, for the first time getting out really four-wheel driving. So there's going to be lots of trip reports. Have a look in there. There was the duck race. It's the duck race that stops a nation, probably Australia's most famous duck race, which was super exciting. The camp oven cook-off. I went in there with some steaks. It was just me and Will. I went in there with some steaks and some bacon, bread and butter. That was it. So very unimaginative. I've got to tell you though, there's something to be said for just a piece of bread with a large amount of butter, Rosella sauce, of course, and a truckload of bacon for brekkie on a Sunday morning. That was pretty awesome. But one of the things that I found completely amazing, a lot of people put a lot of effort into the camp oven cook-off, and the smells coming from around the camp, it was like you're in a 5-star restaurant. And I was just amazed at some of the things that people were cooking up. There were ribs, all sorts of steak preparations, casseroles, lots of really interesting ways of doing the veggies. Damper. There was quite a few people with damper, and some of it was beautiful, absolutely amazing. And silver service as well. I'll put a link into some of the trip reports in the show notes. Have a look. It's just amazing that the lengths that some people went to, and it really does highlight just because you're out camping, it doesn't mean you need to be slumming it. There were some people who went to an awesome effort, which I think is really exciting. The tracks out there as well. Great to get out and go four-wheel driving. Have a look around some of that beautiful area. My first time around that area. Didn't get out to Craig's Hut, which I would have liked to have done. I've been there before. But yeah, a lot of people seeing a lot of huts. It was great to also, the thing I love most about the gatherings is being able to meet up with people from the forum. So met up with the New South Wales crew, and I don't think they did a lot of four-wheel driving around Sheepyards because their big adventure was the trip down and probably going on the way back as well. So they had lots of adventures, did lots of great tracks, caught up with the South Australian crew as well. Great to catch up with those guys and have a chat and have a bit of a yarn over a beer over the campfire. And because I've said it before and I'll say it again, you meet the nicest people sitting around a campfire. Now, and it's official, the 10th Annual Victorian 4x4 Earth Gathering is going to be at O'Toole's. So we're going to pull out all the stops with this one. 10 years of gatherings in Victoria, which I'm really excited and proud of. It's the home base for 4x4 Earth in Victoria. Some amazing tracks to do around that area, and also you've got the gazebo, which I think Grumpy and the Gippy crew have done an amazing job in helping parks out to provide infrastructure to be able to keep a lot of those campgrounds open and keep some of the tracks open as well. Really important work that we do there. So there'll be more details about that. Keep an eye out for it, and if you can, head out there. It's going to be awesome. Now, four-wheel drive insurance. Before I jump into my conversation with Kalen, I want to talk briefly about what we've done with 4x4 Earth and insurance. And I know probably over 1,000 people signed up for our previous four-wheel drive insurance provider, and it really went nowhere, and I don't even think those guys were following up the insurance leads. And so we took that down a couple of years ago, and I was really quite disappointed that it was so hard to find someone who understood four-wheel drive insurance. Kalen's come along, set up Club 4x4. So he's a four-wheel driver. He's got extensive vehicle insurance experience, and he understands what is different in vehicle insurance and four-wheel drive insurance, because there's a couple of really big issues that come up with that. I want to tell you my story. So I delve into it a little bit in the podcast the day I killed my Jeep. I want to be explicit about the insurance issues that we had. So for those of you who don't know, I wrote my Jeep off in a creek crossing gone horrifically wrong. And so I've got a dead Jeep sitting there. And I, Grumpy was good enough to lend me his phone because my phone didn't have coverage there. This is out at Talbotville. And so I'm on the phone, and I was on hold for an hour. So with RACV, on hold for an hour, finally get through to someone, and I say, I'm out at Talbotville, and she goes, okay, what state's that in? And it's like, oh God, we're not off to a good start here. So I told her where it was. She actually apologised, and she said, I'm sorry about the wait. There's been storms in, I think she said New South Wales, which to me, I thought it didn't sound right. I didn't click as to what the problem was with that. I was actually calling RACV, so I would have thought most of the members would be in Victoria. Why would it matter if there was an issue in New South Wales? Now, obviously, it's all one big call centre because the company that owns RACV owns a lot of other insurance companies. Now, she said, we'll get an assessor out on Monday. And I was like, okay, are you sure? And she said, yep, there's no recovery people who work on the weekends, and we'll get an assessor out on Monday and we'll sort something out from there. And I was like, okay. So I hung up, and after about 15 minutes, after having a bit of a think about that, and actually this was on Sunday morning. I was on hold on Saturday night for probably 30 minutes and didn't get through. So I called back after my initial first 1 hour phone call, and I said, look, I just spoke to someone. I want to run this past you. I'm with my son. I'm at a campground. I'm about 30 minutes from the nearest town, and I'm 30 minutes from phone coverage as well. And I won't have access to this phone tomorrow. And there's no one who can recover my vehicle, and assessor will be out tomorrow. Now, I just want to ask, is that the best that you can do? And she said, look, let me look into it. Now, she then started asking a whole series of questions, which became really scary because it was clear that they had no idea where I was. Okay, so the way that this was going to go down was that I was going to lose phone communication, and I was going to be stranded at Talbotville, and they had no idea where I was, and they had no way of contacting me. So we kind of sorted that out. I spent a lot of time on hold, and she said, you know what, I found someone who does recoveries in that area. So thankfully, still had no idea where we were. I was actually getting my wife, Tina hadn't come out with us, so she was at home, so she had decent comms with people, and she was liaising with it. And she spoke with the four-wheel drive recovery people, and they were like, oh yeah, Talbotville, yeah. Like they knew exactly what we were talking about. Once it got to those guys, then it was all fantastic. They knew exactly what they were talking about. They knew where we were. All of the problems that just seemed almost insurmountable for RACV were going to be taken care of, which was quite reassuring. They came out the Sunday afternoon. I was really lucky. Mandy lent me her car to drive home, which I'm eternally grateful. Will was getting quite worried because he was going to miss out on school. I'm not too sure why. I would have thought when I was his age, I would have thought that would have been epic, missing a day of school. He was getting a bit worried. He wanted to get home. And so they just lent me a car. And this is the thing I love about the four-wheel drive community. A lot of people offered to help out. Their offer was, here is a vehicle which we have unpacked, and they started packing our stuff into. So it was a very aggressive offer. And this is the thing about the four-wheel drive community. Sort of everyone looks after everyone else, which is what I love about everyone on 4x4 Earth. So we got home, and it was just a really scary kind of situation that they had no idea where we were. and they had no sort of idea about a four-wheel drive recovery. These guys are a 24-hour towing service specialising in off-road recoveries, and RACV, at first, they didn't even know about it. And I just thought, my God, how many times is this an issue? Now, talking to other people, issues about modifications. And this is one of the massive issues that we have as a community, is you go and buy a vehicle, and it might be secondhand or it might be new. You go and then spend all of this money on modifications, and they don't add any value to your vehicle when you go to get it insured. They say, well, you bought a $30,000 vehicle, we'll insure it for $30,000. But what about the snorkel, the bar, the winch, the lights, the lift? What about all of that? Well, we're not going to insure that. So you've got this huge risk of the vehicle, of you suffering a huge loss, even though you've insured to the maximum amount that you can. So that's why I was excited when Club 4x4 came along. I gave them the opportunity to sort of talk in the forum because I wanted to see what happened, how they looked after people, and how it all sort of, are they a good company to be providing four-wheel drive insurance? Kalen and his team have done a magnificent job. There's been a few well-publicised people who've had problems, as in, accidents, and the team at Club 4x4 has really looked after them. And because that, at the end of the day, everyone can go out and you can go to Coles and get a cheap insurance policy. What happens when you actually have to claim on it? And that's the thing that I found out. It certainly wasn't a stress-free experience, particularly after you've had a stressful incident of writing a vehicle off. So that's why we're super keen. And so what we've done is we've come up with an agreement with Club 4x4 where we'll get a rebate for introducing 4x4 Earth members. The good thing about it is we've done a lot of research with Kalen, discussing the product, kind of working out what it is that works, what doesn't. So we're going to get a rebate. And of course, we get to talk to Kalen and help him refine an awesome four-wheel drive insurance product, a product that is specifically designed for the needs of people like us. And Kalen's going to go through that in a bit of the podcast. So without further ado, let's get chatting with Kalen. So, hey, Kalen, how are you?
Very good, James.
Yeah, that's it. So you started Club 4x4 Insurance. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Club 4x4, I guess, was started based on what we saw was a gap in the market. So, traditionally, prior to us, most motoring enthusiasm was catered for. So you think about your classics, your high-performance vehicles, you think about motorcycling and that sort of thing. No one had really focused on the 4x4 enthusiast the way that, I guess we think we should be focused on. So that really was the impetus to start the business. And look, we recently celebrated our first birthday and happy to have thousands of customers on board already. So it's all going quite well.
Awesome. What sort of four-wheel drive do you drive?
Me at the moment, so I'm in a 2013 Y61, so GU Patrol.
Ah, nice. Yep. And why did you choose that?
Yeah, it's probably a question a lot of people will ask me. I guess looking back on it, having a young family, means you're carting a lot of stuff around. So really that was the foremost reasoning for it. So a good spacious wagon, driven mechanicals predominantly. That's another story. Plenty of space for sort of long-range touring and occasional towing down the track, I guess, once rooftop tents get a little bit harder to get into with the two littlies. So, look, just solid and dependable and a proven rig. So it's been good for us so far.
Nice. And what mods have you done to it?
Oh, gosh. Where do I start? So
that's a proper four-wheel driving answer.
Bar work. It's pretty standard. I think most people don't really want to look back and list out their mods because it's a little bit painful to think about from a cost perspective. But look, we've got the bar work, so ARB bar work, basket on the roof, onboard compressor, lift, worn winch, 9,000-pound winch. It's from a camping perspective. Like I said before, we have the Dachi rooftop tents, the awning, all the various annexes that go with that, so it gives us a little bit more room. General tyres, so we've got our SRLs, which have done us pretty well. And then electricals, I guess you think of electricals, it's important. So we've got a full complement of red arc gear, so the BC-DC to run the dual battery setup and the solar. We've got an inverter in the back because the truck actually been coined Club 4x4's Mobile HQGU. So we've been taking it out to a whole lot of shows. It's got to be self-sufficient. And being in, I guess, in the insurance game, the laptops and things like that to charge. So we've got the inverter to run all that. So a couple of gauges again from Red Arc, the EGT and Boost, dual batteries, obviously. Recently, we did a bit of mechanical work to it. So we had a bit of a turbocharger failure on the way back from the Simpson for the Big Red Bash. So we've taken the opportunity to put a cross-country intercooler kit, so the ultimate kit, Redback 3-inch exhaust, Steinbauer. So that's given us a fair bit more horsepower. We're often carrying pretty heavy loads without event stuff as well, so it just means that we don't have to lean on the old ZB too much. So we found some fuel efficiency in that too, which is good and keeps the exhaust gas down. So pretty well modified. She's pretty well geared up to get out there and be pretty self-sufficient. It's just about finding time to do that at the moment, James, as I said.
Yeah, that's the tricky thing. But it's a pretty serious rig then. Not extreme, but well set up for going out and about and exploring the beautiful country.
Absolutely.
So mud, snow, sand or rock?
Do I have to choose, really?
A few people say that.
My little ones love the beach, so I'd have to say sand driving is really our go-to. I haven't really done snow, to be honest. It's one of these things on the bucket list. Being in New South Wales, obviously getting to snow is further down the state, so it's not readily available for you, as it would be for yourself, mate. So might be able to get down there and you can show me around one of these days down in Victoria.
Yeah,
look, mud's great fun, as you know, but you've got to clean the stuff off. And look, the technicality of a rocky track is great. But like I said, most of my time at the moment is spent touring with the family, so I tend to keep things a little bit tame and just think about the destination a bit more than the driving process.
Yeah. So what would be your best track and why?
Every track has its own positives and negatives. I guess if I would have to say right now, one of the things that keeps floating around in my head is earlier on, as I sort of mentioned earlier, we did a trip up to the Big Red Bash, and one of the tracks that we went on in that process, so we went a long way a little bit. So the Strzelecki just hangs in my head at the moment. Who can tire of that red dirt? And obviously this year they had a fair bit of rainfall, so the contrast of the dirt and all the vegetation that was around is just one of these things that's just hanging in my mind at the moment. But unfortunately, big trips are a bit of a challenge at the moment between the business and the little ones. But yeah, that's one that hangs at the moment. But my go-to really has to be right here in my backyard, so in the Blue Mountains and that greater region. So a bit of a stone's throw and lots of great stops and tracks to explore. So
awesome. What's the hairiest moment that you've had four-wheel driving, and what did you learn from it?
I guess the way I look at it, tracks are challenging, and what I really enjoy about wheeling, I guess, is process. So, your steering wheel's telling you something, wheel placement is so important, and the way that the truck's responding to what you're doing too. It's a challenging thing. I don't think there's many people that are listening here that wouldn't feel the same way. Sometimes you don't get it right, though. So I guess the one that I will call out for me is probably a couple of years ago now. I was going up a section of track here in the mountainside at Midsdale. It's called Fire Truck Hill. So I had a family member from overseas who I was just showing around the area. I just did a day trip out there. And anyone that has done fire truck just knows that it's pretty steep. It's not too gnarly, but it's pretty steep. And about 3/4 of the way down, there's some pretty deep ruts and a couple of little rock steps. So I'm going up there and looking back on it, I obviously picked the wrong line, and I didn't engage the rear locker either. So that didn't do me any favours. So I've gone up. I'm coming up over the rut, and pretty soon I found that I'm not getting any drive to two of my wheels. So I think it was the front driver's side and the rear left side was sort of hanging in the air and sort of caused it to bounce up and down. So anyway, I wasn't going anywhere in a hurry, and it was sort of bouncing around a fair bit. So as soon as I got off the gas, started to roll backwards, got on the anchors, and by that point it was a little bit gravelly, so I'm pointing to the other side of the track rather than pointing up. So that's obviously not where you want to be with the kind of gradient that you're on as well, and all the ruts that were around me. So no way I was going to drive out of it. So luckily enough, I was able to find a tree and hitch up the winch and right the truck so I was looking back up the hill. So took my time and got out of there slowly and threw the lockers on. So, the rear locker, that was a slow but a little bit more of a relaxed ride up, thankfully. Made for great conversation, actually, because my relative had never been off-road. So I don't think he'll be going out again anytime soon. But, yeah, look, that's probably the one that hangs in my mind the most at the moment. But, yeah, I'm sure there's plenty more that we could talk about. And, look, what did it teach me? The hill's actually called Fire Truck Hill because of the fire truck that rolled end on end all the way down. So it probably commands or deserves a little bit more respect than sort of flippantly going up there. What I learned was stop and think about what you're doing. If I had the lockers on, or the rear locker on, I'm pretty confident that I would have been able to go up there no problems. But, it only takes a split second. So, yeah, preparation and being really present in that moment is really important.
And I think that's a really, really good point because there's lots of videos out there of people who, the car just trips over and like literally in 2 or 3 seconds, everything's fine to rolling over the edge of the cliff. And you just think, holy cow, that happened really, really, really quickly. And that's the other thing that I find that a lot of people struggle with is working out when it's gone pear-shaped. Some people panic. You got to just stop. You got to have a think, tie it up, get the winch out so that, once you've tied onto a tree, everything's a whole lot safer than before you've tied up to a tree. And there's been a few cases where people haven't been thinking about that and it's ended up going all sorts of pear-shaped for them, which is untidy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, look, I think with a lot of these newer vehicles as well, they're so tremendously capable. So you get lulled into this false sense of security. And, yeah, like you said, before you know it, you find yourself in a situation that you don't want to be in. So, yeah, that definitely what my biggest takeout was, just to stop and think and really assess what you're doing.
Yeah, really good points. So, which is a good segue into four-wheel drive insurance. I've talked in the past about the issues that I've had with insurance. I've always thought that it was fairly obvious that there's a couple of problems with four-wheel drive insurance. One is, where are you? Because for every car, you can just look up and see where the street is, or you can go to Google Maps and find out where you are and give them an address that's very, very accurate. That's not always the case when you're out four-wheel driving. They were the big issues that I had. It took me hours on the phone to explain to them where I was, and the most scary thing was that people said, yep, we know where you are, and in reality, when I rang them back, they had no idea where we were. That was a bit of a problem. And then you've got mods. Mods are a huge problem because, how many vehicles on the road are modified? That's just a question without notice, but it would be a very small percentage, wouldn't it?
Yeah, you're right, mate. A lot of people would just leave the vehicle as it is from the factory, and that's where I guess that's where it makes sense to really seek out and understand exactly what you're getting with your insurance, because you don't want to be talking to someone that doesn't understand it, I guess. And
so what's the Club 4x4 approach then to insurance?
Yeah, look, I guess the biggest call-out is that, and I think I alluded to it earlier on, we're here for the 4x4 enthusiasts, so we don't insure anything else. We don't deal with any other products. Our view and our intent in becoming involved is very much to be the insurance advocate for that 4B enthusiast. I guess that's it's an important thing to call out because it is really our bread and butter. It's everything that we exist for. You mentioned being somewhere where you can't really pinpoint. And I guess one of the biggest things that people call out and ask for and ask questions about is, do you really cover me off-road? And I guess the answer to that is absolutely yes. So we cover you anywhere in Australia. You said mud, sand, snow, rock earlier on. So everything and anything in between, water crossings, whether it be, beach crossing, whether it be a river, covering off-road is absolutely imperative to our business. And some people mention gazetted and non-gazetted roads. That's usually something that stems from a discussion with a general insurer because that's the sort of terminology that they use. For us, gazetted and non-gazetted, you could be cutting your own path. As far as we're concerned, you'd definitely be covered. But I guess the only caveats there are that as long as you're not doing anything illegal at the time, you're not trespassing, you're not going into a closed track, which obviously doesn't help anyone. It's not something that we support, or disobeying local law enforcement orders, like going through flooded waterways or going across a road that's flooded. Other than that, you're covered anywhere off-road, and that's a really key call-out for us.
And that is a good point, yeah, because I know that it is a sort of a sticking point, and it is something that a lot of people are sort of worried about when they go off-road. What's the process when something goes wrong with Club 4x4? How does it work?
So, look, like any insurer, the first thing that you want to do, obviously, is secure your vehicle and make sure that it's not going to get damaged any further. And then it'd be placing a call in to our call centre to lodge a claim. Now, if you get stuck after hours, or you're somewhere where you're not going to be able to get in touch with someone, relatively quickly, it'd be about organising a recovery, obviously, and that's no different to having a road-based accident. Now, when you have a road-based accident, I'd be very surprised if many people will call the insurance company straight away. I think what you'll find is that it'll either be a call to the police or to arrange a tow of some description. So it's no different with us. So you get your vehicle out of there if you can. Otherwise, you'd give us a call and we'll go through the claim process and get that, either whether it be a recovery process or whether it be simply starting to arrange the process of getting the vehicle repaired or assessed or what it might be. We'll get that process going for you.
Awesome. How's the claims process been going through? I know there's been some feedback on the forums about people who've been really happy.
Yeah, look, I guess claims is where rubber hits the roads with insurance. You're not buying a piece of paper or an email or anything like that. You're buying that service when you have a time of need. So for us, it's been great to start seeing customers come through, and certainly we've had a fair few come through for your basic road accidents. We've had a couple of that are water crossings. We've even had a couple on our off-road recovery cover, which is our another one of the great product benefits that we have there. So look, we learn as we go. Feedback is very important to us, and I know that anyone who has followed Club 4x4 on 4x4 Earth would have realised that feedback is important. I'm happy to say that 4x4 Earth members have driven some changes to our policies based on the feedback that we've had through you guys. So, we continue to refine and make our processes better, but that's not something that's just going to happen now. That's something that will happen forever.
And I think the important thing to recognise is that the existing systems were broken. I mean, there's lots of people out there with stories, similar to what I had. You certainly don't want to be left in a situation like I was left in. And I think that the thing that's, from my point of view, we always want to make sure that we partner with someone who's going to be able to look after our members. And the fact that just watching you say, oh, yep, here's something that we can do better, let's work on it, let's come up with a solution, I think that's really exciting because, it shows that you are focused on providing a product that is going to work as well as possible for the member. And the interesting thing is that you can get insurance for all sorts of different prices. Coles is selling insurance now. A lot of those guys are out there, but you pay for the insurance hoping that you're never going to need it. And there's a lot of people who have buyer's regret about an hour after they've had an accident and try and contact their insurer and realise that it's not going to be as clear-cut as they had initially hoped or had been led that it would be. And that was definitely the big issue that I had. When you're ringing RACV from Victoria about a Victorian vehicle and you go to a call centre in New South Wales and they're saying that they're super busy because...
Yeah, that's a concern, isn't it? That's a concern. Look, the price piece is an important one to really think in a bit more detail, James. I think most people that have been listening to this would have an appreciation of the fact that generally you do get what you pay for. And I think that having worked in insurance for a number of years now, I think that the focus has shifted, and it's probably been shifted by insurers, if I could be honest. The focus has been shifted to being the most price competitive. And I think that the insurers going into that price-based competitive war type situation, it's definitely driven that in the market and driven that at a consumer level. And I think people are probably programmed at the moment to try and find the cheapest insurance product because, let's face it, You don't ever think that you're going to need it. You don't ever want to need it. So it's a grudge purchase. So people will try and hunt for the cheapest premium. Now, what people don't do is really understand exactly what they're getting for their dollar. And I think that's made even more difficult when you come across a product like ours, which is completely out the box, very different, and it's offering coverages in some cases that, having spoken to people, they say, well, I don't believe it. And the reality is it is there. It's just you have to spend the time to read through the documentation and really understand what that coverage means. One great example, James, is the way that we cover, the investment that people make into these trucks. So I called out the GU that I'm driving at the moment. That's got about somewhere between 25 and 30,000 in mods. I only say somewhere in between because it's actually getting some work done at the moment. The way that truck's insured right now, the agreed value that I have on it with Club is 43,000. Let's call it $30,000 in mods. So it's 43 plus 30. That's the way it's insured.
Yep. So
it actually gives you a total sum insured that combines that 43 and 30, which is $73,000. So 2013 GU covered for $73,000. That's really covering you for your investment. So, it's not all apples and apples anymore. And I guess that's the biggest challenge that we face, whether it be talking to people on the phone, whether it be a web inquiry at an event. It really is not, it's nothing like the products that you can get out there at the moment. So it pays sometimes to change the mindset. Because let's face it, we are all driving pretty unique, modified and accessorised vehicles. So why wouldn't you cover yourself for your total investment?
And I think that's the big thing, and it's one of the big things that I've seen so many people have so many problems with, is just being able to get an insurer to be able to value the vehicle at an amount that makes sense. Because a lot of them will say, no, this is what the market value is going to be, and then when the worst does happen, they're out of pocket a fortune because of the fact that they've then, they can't afford to go and put those mods back on their vehicle.
Well, exactly right. And that's where you come across some strife, and there's a place in the market for that product. And not everyone will want to have the 2013 GU covered for 73, even if they had that much money invested in it. And that's fine, but there's choices for every customer need, I guess, is what I'm saying now. So it's just about taking the time to understand it.
Awesome. The big issue that's that's had everyone talking over the last couple of weeks has been a vehicle classification issue that Ford has had with their Everests and Jeep has had with I think it's the Cherokees. It's definitely the Grand Cherokees.
Yeah.
Being rated as MA versus MC. Now, I understand that you've done a little bit of research into this.
Yeah, I have, James. So, look, I was alerted to that through a thread on 4x4 Earth, actually. So it was good to come across that. So, look, I took some time to really read into it, understand it, and look, it to a certain extent, James, it still doesn't make any sense to me. That classification is just bewildering. I sort of boil it back down to red tape / financial decision making by the car manufacturers. It's not. I can't see how a Jeep with low range, or whether it be the Everest with the electronic wizardry, is not capable of being an MC. I really see this as a decision that's been made in a boardroom somewhere or in a product development room somewhere, a marketing department that really hasn't considered, the end user effect. So, I can't see how it would make sense in the real world. And I guess one of the questions that we've been asked, and obviously the big piece that's being discussed within the various threads and other places, is what does it mean for me if I want to modify my Ford Everest, for example? And to be honest, James, right at the beginning when I looked at it, I thought, geez, this is really going to be a problem. But then the more I whittled away and the more I thought about it, so we did a little bit of work in the last couple of months following a fair bit of active questioning of our stance on illegal modifications. And I guess the classification issue, so an Everest being classed an MA, off-road tyres, for example, become an illegal added modification or / accessory on a Ford Everest. So it sort of fell back into the bounds of our stance on legal modifications to be more specific. And what I've tried to do with our product and the way that we want to service the 4x4 enthusiast is very much to add in a layer of reasonability, is the way that I put it. It's not a word, I've made it up, but adding in that reasonableness test when we're dealing with our market. And I guess being more specific around how we deal with illegal mods. Not all illegal mods are going to contribute to an accident. And I guess the way our stance is going to work is an illegal modification will be a problem for a policyholder if that modification is deemed to have contributed to that particular claimable event. So let's make that real. It's a whole lot of jargon in that sentence. But let's say, for example, you've got a GU patrol like mine and you've got 4 inches of lift. You've put 35s on it. Let's go even further and let's say you've got an inch of body lift as well. So you're up in the clouds. Now, that sort of modification is obviously illegal. There's not many states in Australia, to my understanding, where it's legal to be any taller than 2 inches past your factory roof height, unless you've got things like portal axles and things like that. But notwithstanding all of that, let's say you had a regular traffic accident. Let's say you rear-ended someone in that particular patrol that I described before. That amount of lift couldn't have contributed to that accident in the same way that it couldn't have contributed due to reverse into a bollard in a car park, for example. So in that sort of instance, there's no way anyone in my business will be approved to create any issues for that particular claimant. But let's say that particular vehicle rolled on a road, whether it be on or off-road, there's an increased propensity to roll that comes from increasing the centre of gravity of a vehicle that far. In that particular instance change, you're going to have some issues. So that sort of demonstrates the way that we want to try and run our business. It's about being reasonable. But going back to the Everest example, if I could, yep. It seems like the most relevant point of discussion there is actually putting on your off-road tyres. So my understanding, and you'll clarify if you think I'm incorrect there, mate, the MA vehicle or MA classified vehicle needs to run on tyres that are rated based on the same factory manufacturer specification, which in the Everest case, I believe, somewhere in my readings, was up to 180 or 190 kilometres an hour. So in essence, it's a road tyre. There's no off-road tyre that you can buy that's ADR approved that'll cover you for that sort of speed. So going back to the reasonableness test, the only time that classification or the tyre that you've put on, which may be illegal to a constable on the road or a highway patrol, the only time that's going to be an issue with Club 4x4 is if you've had an accident where you were driving at a rate that was higher than that off-road tyre that you've put on. Now, if you've had an accident at above 160 kilometres an hour, I really hope you survive, but I would imagine that there would be a significant crash scene investigation made as part of that. And generally, as part of that, an estimation is made on the speed that the vehicle was travelling at. Now, if it can be determined that you were travelling faster than the limit of that particular tyre, then again, like that lifted scenario, you're going to find yourself in some strife with your insurance. But outside of that, you're not going to have an issue. I hope that makes sense. That's a really long-winded way of putting it. But
no.
Trying to get across that we're trying to be reasonable.
From my point of view, it raises the obvious question, which is theoretical only. I don't want anyone to go out and test this. But who's got a set of muddies that they can do 160 in?
That's exactly what I was thinking at the time. I didn't want to put it that way, and I was being probably a little bit PC when I said I hope they survive. There's no way in the world I'd push the GU. Well, the GU wouldn't even get to 160. If it could, there's no way I'd do it.
So there's a couple of issues. They're probably still unroadworthy, and if they go through a place where they are going to get pinged by someone who's aiming to ping them, then that's an obvious thing.
Well,
which is a concern. The other thing that I find really bizarre is that I'm pretty sure that the Northern Territory closed their only unlimited speed highway.
Yes.
So effectively, whether you've got all-terrains, muddies or roadies on, there's nowhere that you can go faster than the speed that an all-terrain's rated for anyway, which is another one of these problems with the whole ADR and the state-based roadworthiness regime that we live under. Effectively, yes, the vehicle is roadworthy, but it doesn't actually make any effective difference in the vehicle performance if you're operating it within the speed limit.
That's exactly right, because there's no way that you can legally push any tyres past their speed limit, without breaking the law anyway. So you're right. The effectiveness of it kind of fades away. So the relevance of the discussion becomes a little bit smaller too. So
excellent, really good points, and it's really good that your Club 4x4 is taking that stance. The reasonableness, because I think most people are going to be able to relate to that, because it does seem reasonable. You're driving the vehicle within what it's designed to do. Yeah, so that's excellent. I think that's a great story.
Awesome. No, that's great.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Kalen, for coming through and explaining something that is that can be very, very important for four-wheel drivers. Hopefully, it will never be very, very important for all of our members, but sadly, I suspect that it will be over time, because tragically, it happened to me. So, thanks for coming in and talking about it. For anyone whose insurance is coming up for renewal, definitely, or it doesn't even need to be coming up for a renewal, really, because you can get a rebate on the unused portion of your roadworthy, can't you? Oh, your insurance.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely something to look into. And, thanks a lot, Kalen.
Thanks, James. All the best.
Cool. So really interesting there to find out about Kalen, find out a little bit about his story and his insurance product. And this MAMC thing, it just shocks me. Is it a paperwork issue? How hard is it going to be for the manufacturers to go back and try and get that changed? Or are people who've bought Everests and Cherokees and Grand Cherokees 2016, are they going to be out of pocket because they now have vehicles which people who want to go four-wheel driving aren't going to be able to fit all-terrains to? Really scary. And it's going to be, we'll keep you up to date. I did reach out to Ford and I haven't heard anything back. I did reach out to Jeep and I said, look, this is a pretty technical issue. I'm not fully across it. And all credit to Robert Pepper. While I was out at the Victorian Gathering, I asked a whole heap of people who are really, really experienced four-wheel drivers, do you know what the difference is between MA and MC classifications? And the only people who did were people who'd heard about the issue. And I said to them, would you have known about it a month ago? And all of them said no. So great work to Robert Pepper for picking up on this issue and bringing it to everyone's attention. Because what are the chances of someone getting picked up for a roadworthy and the police saying, this is not a four-wheel drive, this is a passenger vehicle, and you have all-terrains on it, which is unroadworthy. The thing that worries me is I reckon there's a whole heap of people who are going to go, holy cow. That is news to me. So great work, Robert, on picking up on that, and excellent to talk to Kalen. He's done a lot of research to work out what it is, and that they've come up with a very mature approach, I think, to the insurance issues that it raises as well. So my big ask for you is have a look, get a quote from Kalen and the team at Club 4x4 for your insurance. Obviously, it's got to be right for you. I've put my quote request in. I'll let you know how I go with it. But at the end of the day, if I need my insurance, I want to be fairly certain that they're going to be there to help me out and not have these continuing ongoing issues where the people who I needed to talk to, so RACV, it takes forever to get hold of them and they don't really understand four-wheel drives in any way, shape or form. So yeah, have a look at it and get a quote. Now in the show notes, I'll also include a list. What I want to do is to come up with a list of recovery experts Australia-wide so that if you do get into trouble, if you haven't got a mate who can get you out, or if your mate's had a crack and he can't get you out, there'll be a list of people who you'll be able to call to be able to help you get out. And, Re Recovery, those guys did a fantastic job of coming out, and it was pretty much the easiest recovery they've done, I think, because we're actually in the campground. And they were expected that. I know that they've done all sorts of complicated recoveries. It was pretty easy for them to do the one that they had to do with us. So I'll include that in the show notes as well. Apart from that, hopefully I'll see you out on the track someday. Bye.
4x4earth.com is used by over 200,000 people every month to find great tracks, organise trips, and find out how to better enjoy exploring the great outdoors. There's over 1,000 tracks and 300 campsites ready for you to explore. So check out 4x4earth.com today and sign up to get access to the track information, ask questions, and meet other 4x4 Earthers. Membership is completely free. If you're looking for a good route, check out 4x4earth.com today.